Hey everyone, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Keisha and today I'm going to be doing the Christmas song book tag. I don't really do a lot of book tags here on my channel, but when I saw this one, I thought it was really cute how it tied in a Christmas song with the prompts. This was originally created by Haley from Haley in Bookland for her Vlogmas content a few years ago, so I will go ahead and link her original concept down below. There are 14 bookish questions here, so let's just go ahead and get started with the first prompt. And the first one is, you're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. Name a villainous character you couldn't help but love. I really had to think about this one because either it was going to be a spoiler to tell you about a villainous character that I shouldn't like but I loved, but then I was like, I can't really do that because it would be a spoiler, so I had to rack my brain a little bit, but I remembered a book that I absolutely love. It's one of my all-time favorites, and that is Vicious by V.E. Schwab, and the character that I'm talking about is Victor Vale. Victor Vale is a little bit of a gray character. This is the villain series, but I would say he is kind of a morally gray character and somebody you could potentially root for. This story follows Victor and Eli as they are college roommates and deciding to do this project together where they are trying to prove the existence of extraordinaries or EOs. So they run a few experiments and they end up turning into EOs themselves, and life kind of happens from there. Victor and Eli are now nemesis, and you kind of get to see how their story plays out. Victor is our main character here, and I really loved his character. Like I said, he is a gray character. He does some things that could be considered villainous, but then he also has parts of himself that make you really want to root for him. So I feel like this is a book character that even though they're a villain, I can't help but love them. Prompt number 2 is, all I want for Christmas is you. Which book do you most hope to see under your Christmas tree? So I've actually asked my husband for this book for Christmas, and I get this author's books every year for Christmas. That is Shay Earnshaw, and this year I'm really looking forward to A Wilderness of Stars. I don't really remember a lot about this book, and I really like going into her books blind. I know this one is a little bit different than some of her other books she's come out with because it is a little bit more sci-fi, but like I said, I don't really remember a lot about it. I just know that Shay Earnshaw's books are always ones that I enjoy, so I'm really looking forward to receiving this one this year. Prompt number 3 is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Name a character that overcomes major obstacles and learns to believe in themselves. This was also a really hard one. I was scouring my shelves trying to think of one, and I could not recommend Bear by Ben Queen and Joe Todd Stanton. This is a middle grade graphic novel. It does kind of look like a picture book the way it's set up, but it is a graphic novel, and it is one of the sweetest, cutest, just amazing stories that I have ever read, so I had to recommend this one. Bear is the character that I'm mentioning that overcomes major obstacles and learns to believe in himself. So Bear is a seeing eye dog, and his owner is blind, and then one day Bear starts to lose his eyesight, and he feels like he also starts to lose his purpose. He thinks, how can I take care of Patrick if I can't see myself? So Bear ends up running away and going on this journey to self-discovery, and it is just one of the sweetest stories. I cried in this one. I just think it was so good, and I would highly recommend it. Prompt number 4 is, Santa Claus is coming to town. Which character do you think would be on top of the naughty list? And then which character do you think would be on top of the nice list? So I'm going to keep both of these characters within the same book. I don't have this one to show you, but it is one of my favorite books that I've read this year, and my mom is currently borrowing it and reading it, and she's really enjoying it. So my character on the nice list would be Fern, and my character on the naughty list would be Rose, and this is from the book The Good Sister by Sally Hepworth. I absolutely adored this story. It follows our main character, Fern. She's a librarian, and she is also a little bit on the spectrum. She is one of the best book characters. I just absolutely fell in love with her. And she also has a little bit of a romance going on. Basically, her sister, Rose, wants to get pregnant and she's not able to. And so Fern takes it upon herself to be a surrogate for her. And so she's like, I want to make sure that Rose is able to be a mother. And so she goes through this whole process. Rose, in the meantime, is just, she's kind of an overprotective sister, and she's not really the best sister along the way, and it just kind of really makes you annoyed with her because Fern is trying to help her out. If you've read the book, you know, I'm not going to go into more detail than that, but Just know that those are my naughty and nice characters. And if you haven't read The Good Sister, it is such a good one. It's pitched as a thriller, but I would say it's more of like a light mystery with some family drama, but it is still one of my all-time favorites. Prompt number 5 is Frosty the Snowman. Which book just melts your heart? This is a recent read for me and one that I haven't talked about a lot, but I felt like it deserved more love. That is The Day the World Stopped Turning by Michael Morpurgo. This is a World War II historical fiction, and our main character in this story is actually autistic, and he is also one of my favorite book characters ever. He is so sweet. His name is Lorenzo, and he lives among the salt flats and the flamingos. There are lots of things he doesn't understand, but he does know how to heal animals and how to talk to them. The flamingos especially. He loves routine and music too, and every week he goes to market with his mother. It's there he meets Kezia, a Roma girl who helps her parents run their carousel, and who shows him how to ride the wooden horse as the music plays. But then the German soldiers come with their guns. Everything is falling apart. The carousel, Kezia and her family, even Lorenzo's beloved flamingos. Yet Lorenzo senses who to trust and how to hope, even when everything he knows is threatened. This is such a sweet story. I loved the friendship between Kezia and Lorenzo in the story. Both of those characters were absolutely phenomenal, but I especially loved Lorenzo and just how he was so bold and brave in every situation, how he was so intelligent. I feel like sometimes we look at people who have special needs or disabilities and things like that, and we tend to feel sorry for them, but I feel like some of those people are some of the most intelligent and loving and best people in the world, and I feel like this is such a good reminder of that. And also it does take place during the war, so there are some hard-hitting elements there as well. But the story made me smile, it made me cry, it was just so good. Definitely a book that just melted my heart. Next we have Feliz Navidad. Choose a book that takes place in a country other than your own. I really tried to think, I had 2 books in mind, but I really tried to think of some different ones and I couldn't, and I'm like, no, it just has to be this book. So I'm going to use City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. This is one of my favorite spooky middle grade series. I still have to read the last one. I've been putting it off because there aren't any more after that, at least not for now. But this book takes place in Edinburgh, Scotland, and it follows our main character, Cassidy Blake. And Cassidy has a special gift. She can actually see through the veil. What is funny about that is that her parents are part of this TV series where they go to different haunted places all over the world, which is why they're in Edinburgh, Scotland in this book. And they are ghost hunters, but they can't really see ghosts, and they don't know that Cassidy can, but Cassidy actually can. And she runs into these different situations as someone who can see through the veil. She also has a black cat that is adorable in the story, and also she has a best friend who is a ghost. His name is Jacob, and this is just a really fun series to follow. I particularly love the paperbacks. I think I say this every time I talk about this book, but in the back of the paperbacks you get a author Q&A, and you also get pictures of the different places that Cassidy visits. So this one's Edinburgh, but you get pictures of the different places she visits throughout the story, and I think that just adds a really special element. But I would definitely say this is a great book to check out if you are looking for a spooky but heartwarming middle grade story, and also one that is set in a different country. Then we have It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year. Which holiday themed book do you use to spread the Christmas joy? So last year I read one of my absolute favorite holiday books, and that one is 10 Blind Dates by Ashley Elston. This is a young adult romance, and I know that not all young adult books are great in the sense of like the romance with the there's a lot of teen angst and drama and immaturity and stuff like that, but I will say this book was done so well, and it took me by such surprise. This is a 5-star read for me, and it was just so cute. It follows our main character. Her name is Sophie, and Sophie ends up breaking up with her boyfriend over the holidays, and her grandmother says that she and the rest of her family members are going to set Sophie up with 10 blind dates over the Christmas holiday, and this is just it's just the best story. I know I keep saying that about all these books, but it is so sweet to see her go on all these dates. It is adorable, but there is one person the whole time that you just kind of know she's going to end up with. This has one of my favorite tropes. I love it so much, and I definitely would like to share the joy of this book with anyone that's interested. So if you're looking for a good YA Christmas romance, definitely check this one out. Prompt number 8 is Sleigh Ride. Which fictional character would you choose to spend the holidays with? Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic character. It could be just a person that you really enjoyed and want to hang out with. But I just recently finished one of my favorite books of all time, and I cannot not mention this character because he is like everything. He's everything. So we're going to go with Will Sinclair from Across Country Christmas. I absolutely adored Will's character in this story. He has had some character development along the way, but overall, he is just like the sweetest cinnamon roll, like best. I love him. And he has the same name as my husband. So I just would love, I mean, obviously I wouldn't love to spend Christmas with him as a married woman, but in another world, in another life, I would love to spend Christmas with Will Sinclair. He is just like in the Christmas spirit, loving all the things. He has such a big heart. He has had a lot of character growth throughout his life along the way and things to learn from that has molded him into the person that he is today. And yeah, if you have not read Across Country Christmas and you love second chance romance, childhood friends to lovers, brothers, best friend crushes and things like that, road trip books, holiday books, Hallmark stories, books with great banter, I think this is just the perfect book. I highly, highly recommend it. Number 9 is Baby It's Cold Outside. Which book that you didn't like would you sacrifice to a fire to warm yourself up in the cold? There are not many books that I would throw in a fire. And I still don't know that I would actually throw a book in the fire. But if I was going to throw any book in the fire, it would be The Push by Ashley Audrain, because I hated that book so much. So much. I will say that Ashley Audrain is a good writer and she can weave a good story. But I hated that story so much. I do not ever recommend me a book that has anything to deal with like evil children, potentially evil children, bad things that happen to children that is just like really, I mean, if it happens like in a small portion and then we kind of move on from it, that's fine. But this whole story was just a trip. It was an absolute trip and not a good one. It was like a really bad one. And so yeah, if I had to throw a book in the fire, it would be this one. The next one is Do You Hear What I Hear? Which book do you think everyone should read? So I picked 2 for this prompt because I don't know if everybody would like the same types of books. So if you don't mind mystery thriller books, or even if you're new to that genre as I was when I picked this book up, this was actually my first thriller that I ever read, I would recommend The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I feel like most people at this point have read it, but if you by chance have not picked this one up, I do recommend it. Again, as someone who had never read thrillers before this, as someone who is a scaredy cat and was really terrified to read something like this, this was such a good book with such a good twist. It was just a phenomenal story. It follows our main character, Theo. He is a criminal psychotherapist. He is wanting to work with this woman named Alicia Berenson. She is a famous painter. She's married to an in-demand fashion photographer, and she lives in a grand house overlooking a park in one of London's most desirable areas. But one evening, her husband Gabriel returns home from work, and Alicia shoots him 5 times in the face and then never speaks another word. So Theo, the criminal psychotherapist, is captivated by Alicia's story and jumps at the opportunity to work with her. So this whole story is basically Theo trying to figure out what happened with Alicia and her husband, why she has been silent all these years, and this is just a wild ride. It has one of the best twists that I've ever read in a book. It's very fast-paced, and I would highly recommend it too. Then the other book that I wanted to recommend for this same one is one that I feel like just anybody would enjoy. It is a little bit more slow paced, so know that going in. But if you are a book lover, if you love really sweet sentimental stories, then I think you should pick up The Storied Life of A.J. Fickery by Gabrielle Zevin. This is such a good story. I love it so much. So obviously it is a book about books or a book about bookstores. This follows A.J. Fickery, and life is not at all what he expected it to be. He owns this bookshop, but he does not really care for it anymore. His wife recently passed, and he is just not into his work. One day, this woman comes to visit him. She is a bookseller for this publishing company, and she kind of gets to meet his grumpy character. Then from there, he ends up losing this prized possession that he was going to sell to end up being able to sell his bookstore and kind of retire early on in life. He's only in his 30s, and he's had a lot happen. So that happens, but then something else ends up falling on his doorstep, which changes everything. And this has a lot of found family. It does deal with grief. This is one of the most quotable books I've ever read. I wish that I would have tabbed it when I was reading it. It was just so stinking good. It made me laugh. It made me tear up, not quite cry, but tear up. But this also has a movie adaptation that I absolutely loved. It has Lucy Hale playing the female lead in this one, and she did a phenomenal job. It is so, so good, and the movie made me bawl my eyes out. So I would say this is a book that holds up with the movie, or a movie that holds up with the book. They both are phenomenal, so I would recommend these as well. Prompt number 11 is Where Are You Christmas? A book you want immediately that isn't out yet. So I would have probably been stumped about this one had I not stumbled upon a new release coming out next November 1st the other day. So clearly, I just talked about A Cross Country Christmas. This is one of my new favorite books. I love it so, 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 so much. And I found out that this is going to be the first book in a series, and the second one is A Cross Country Wedding. So I don't have a synopsis or anything on that. I don't think there's a cover or a synopsis out there, but it's going to follow the same characters that this story did, and I am so stinking excited for it. Next is Last Christmas, a book you started out loving but didn't end up liking. So I think it was, I don't know, like a year or two ago, I tried to read Lovely War by Julie Berry. This is a story that combines historical fiction with Greek mythology, and I really enjoyed the banter between the gods at the beginning of this one and the love stories that were being weaved together by, I think it's Athena, that was the god of love. She was weaving together stories during this war. There were a couple different couples that were coming out of this, and there was one story that I was really married to more than the rest. But as I kept reading the book, it just had a lull in it. It got boring, and there were a lot of things I didn't care about, so I ended up DNFing it. So it was a book that I was loving initially, but I ended up not even liking it enough to finish it. Next, we have Blue Christmas, a book that made you cry. So I think this was in my top 10 books of last year, or my middle grade books of last year. And as I was recounting my thoughts on this book, which I definitely think you should go back, I'll go ahead and link that video down below. I think you should go back if you're interested in this book and watch how I spoke of it, because I cried when I was talking about it. I don't feel like I'm going to do that today because I'm not really in that mood. But a book that made me cry is Until Tomorrow, Mr. Marsworth by Sheila O'Connor. This is a middle grade historical fiction book set during the Vietnam War. It has a little bit of pacifism in it as well, and it's also an epistolary novel completely written in letters. So these letters are between Renee Kelly and Mr. Marsworth, and this is just one of the sweetest, most wholesome stories I've ever read. I will say the main character, she's 12 years old. She can get a little annoying at times, and you just kind of want to wring your neck sometimes and be like, girl, you should know, like, grow up. This isn't the way this is going to be. But she's still such a lovable character. And Mr. Marsworth is kind of like this curmudgeon-y old man that nobody talks to. But Renee gets this paper route, and she ends up leaving notes for Mr. Marsworth, and they have this correspondence going back and forth. And they learn things about each other, about the war, about their families, and it is just the stinking sweetest story. So if you like historical fiction or middle grade books, or even if you don't know if you like either of those things, I would recommend checking this one out. I have fallen in love with so many middle grade historical fiction books that I really think that middle grade historical fiction is the only type of historical fiction I like. I have read a couple of adult ones that I've enjoyed, but middle grade historical fiction is the ones that, at least the ones I've read, there's so many aspects of like found family, or just like the way war brings people together in books, and that is the part of historical fiction that I love. And the last prompt is A Marshmallow World. It's just a fluffy book. And again, I was like, what in the world can I recommend as a fluffy book? Because I was looking at my shelves, and even books that I would consider to be really light and sweet and all those things have hard-hitting elements. So it's really hard for me to think of a book that I would just describe as fluffy. But I was going through my Instagram feed and looking at pictures of books, and I literally described this book as a fluffy romance. So I'm just going to go with this one. If you have not read All I Want for Christmas by Wendy Logia, this is a YA Christmas romance. It's very short, and it's a really sweet story, and it is just a fluffy story. It is about this girl named Bailey Briggs. She's counting down the days to Christmas. She lives for holiday music, baking cookies, going on snowy sleigh rides, and wearing her light-up reindeer ears to work at Winslow's bookstore. But all she really wants this year is the one thing she doesn't have, someone special to kiss under the mistletoe. And she's 100% certain that that someone isn't Jacob Marley, athlete, player, and of questionable taste in girlfriends. And that Charlie, the mysterious stranger with a British accent, is the romantic lead of her dreams. Is she right? This will be a December to remember filled with real-life Christmas magic. And if she stays on Santa's nice list, a wish that just might come true. Again, fluffy, sweet romance. It is a clean romance, so if you're into that as well. It's kind of predictable what's going to happen in the story, but it's a sweet one to follow. So if you're looking for a short last-minute Christmas edition to your December TBR, I think this would be a good one. I gave it 4 stars. And that is going to wrap up this Christmas song book tag. I hope you heard about some books today that piqued your interest. If you made it this far in the video, go ahead and leave a little music note emoji in the comments, since this is a Christmas song book tag. And if you have not done this tag before, I would love to see you do it and see what your answers are. So if you haven't done it before, just consider yourself tagged. As always, I appreciate you guys so much. I hope you have a Merry Christmas, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, friends.